So, Alan, go ahead and do your introduction and what your position is, and we'll get into it with Stephan.
Well, thank you, Ernie, and it's always a pleasure to be with you, Stephan. A real honor to be with you and maybe explore this issue. When I was asked to do a presentation on this, I've been a copyright practitioner for decades, and I was actually surprised to find that libertarians who are vigorous defenders of private property rights, which I think is the correct position to take, are mixed about whether intellectual property is real, whether it deserves protection, whether copyright is real. That actually shocked me, the idea that anybody can question whether copyright is real, whether authors own their works. I read your paper on intellectual property, and I'd like to ask you some questions about it, help clarify it, maybe help me understand it better. There's no doubt in my mind, at least at the moment, that copyright is real, that it's protectable. It's a bundle of rights. I own them as the creator. I heard Ernie mention that I had the people at this presentation create a copyright of their own, start a book right there in the room. They all started a book, and they own it by the fact that they created it. Of the three types of property, realty, which is land and what's on it, personalty or chattel, movable personal property, and a variety of names, but intellectual property, which is a bundle of things, or what I call mentality, things you create in your mind. These are all very real. They're all entitled to protection. They all have value. They can all be bought or sold. And apparently you don't feel that intellectual, or clarify it for me, intellectual property is real. You can buy it, sell it, own it, trade it, license it, do things with it. And the idea that people can steal it and that's okay, I don't get it. If somebody takes my song, performs it somewhere, makes $1 million, and that's their money, not mine, or there isn't some division of the money they got from my property, maybe you can help me understand why that's okay.
Sure.
Most of the world accepts that copyright is real, that my right to copy it rests with me, and that I can license it or sell it or let them use it. But if they use it without me, there's an injustice in that. And I'm not talking about the law per se.
Okay, let him go ahead and respond before we run out of this segment. Go ahead, Stephan. Give him what first.
Go ahead.
Let me make a couple of fairly short assertions, and then you can respond when we have maybe after. First of all, the Constitution does not mention the word copyright. It says to promote the progress of science and the useful arts,
right,
by securing for a limited time to authors and inventors the exclusive right to their writings and discoveries. Okay, right. So that's what gives Congress the authorization. I wouldn't deny copyright is real. It is a real law that exists because Congress has enacted a copyright statute, which is rooted back in the Statute of Anne from 1709 or 10, as we mentioned earlier, which is rooted in the prior monopolization of the printing press and the scribes by the government and by the church. So the question for me is not whether it's real. I agree that it exists and that you can get copyrights in a book. I think you're wrong to use the word steal just as a legal matter, because even under the current law, if you copy someone's book, it is not stealing. It's considered copyright infringement. Okay, and there are damages payable, but it is not stealing. Even the Supreme Court has recognized this. It's not stealing and it's not taking. Because if I copy what you wrote, you still have what you wrote. So I'm not taking something from you. You could say I'm taking your customers or I'm taking money that you could have made, but that's a different issue. Okay. But so stealing is actually just legally the wrong word. And also as a legal geek technical matter, you're wrong to say there are three types of property, immovable or realty, and personalty or movables, and then this other category. As a legal matter, copyright is classified as an incorporeal or an intangible movable, because the way the division between movable and immovable works is that everything that's not immovable is movable. That's just the way it works. So if it's land, it's immovable, or something incorporated into the land, everything else is movable. So if you're going to call copyright a property right, it is actually movable, which makes no sense, I know, which gets to the problem with the idea of property in ideas. To call an idea movable makes no sense anyway.
So let's start with the first one. I can trace copyright back to 560 AD.
Yes.
The legal history is 1,400 years old. The Statute of Anne in 1709 is the Western civilization statute, but it goes back to the church and recognition that an author owns the author's work. So the legal history is quite old, not just
it's actually about 1,000 years older than that, Alan. In about 400, 500 BC, there was a Greek city-state, Sybaris or something like that. And they had a cooking competition, and whoever won would get a monopoly on their recipes for a year. So, I mean, the idea is pretty old.
So when we're done, let's stay in communication. You'll send me that. It goes back to the Torah, and a member of Chabad gave me a book called Copyright and Jewish Law, which was 1.5 inches thick, and went through the religious scribes and what they found, and it was fascinating. But the Torah is filled with when you can copy and when you can't, and when you are doing a taking of somebody else's work. So the age of it doesn't just trace back to the first law. And once again, some of the laws are out of whack. I think we'll agree on that. But the principle that
you agree that laws are out of whack, that there is a law, they even got a law in the crown of the law. Is that what you're saying, Alan?
Ernie, I know your distaste for law and government. That's famous.
See, this is my point. I want to make sure, I'm going to let you guys go, but I want to make sure that my opinion gets in there, is that if I have an idea or I'm writing something or I'm not looking for a blue pages or an index or a list to go check to see if somebody else thought of it first. When my ideas are built on 15 gazillion and somebody after me is going to copyright something they got from me, or hell, they do it. They do bumper stickers and so on. I am not, as a practical matter, I don't even see how this can be enforceable in a digital age now. I mean, it's not. Okay. So let's go ahead and continue. I know your opinion, Alan, but I want to, this is fascinating, the history that you guys are going through. I just have the fact that there's a history and a bunch of kings and potentates and democracies and governments and all this with shiny badges and guns said so doesn't mean squat to me. I don't care. I want to get down to the principle of should it or even can it. So
when we're done, I'll send you mine, but I got to be out of here really quick. We have opened so many topics, there's no way we'll be able to cover this all.
Well, no, we're going to focus on the copyright and the right, should, could. It doesn't matter to me, because it's going to get to the point where it's irrelevant, it's moot, but it should, where is this, like you're saying, it needs to be protected. All right, here we're coming back. Here we go.
At LRN.FM.
Freedom's the answer. What's the question? You're listening to Ernest Hancock.
And we're right back with Stephan Kinsella and Alan Korwin talking about, the history, and all this is fascinating, but it all comes down to one thing for me. My thing is that, that's all very interesting, what the, kings and governments all said about what they can do and who it gets the monopoly of and the grant of the charter of you're allowed to print this and you're not and you can't think and share and I'm like, none of your freaking business. I don't care. My thing is, you don't want me to know it, you don't want me to build on the idea, you don't want me to write about it, then don't freaking tell me. Because I'm not going to sit there and take a butter knife to my brain and try and carve something out of what I can or can't use and how, and I'm not doing it. Not. And technology is getting to the point that it's moot anyway. But to have the conversation to talk about how it evolved, and it keeps changing. Disney's Mickey Mouse is going to be copyrighted, for, ever, which means other stuff is going to be done too, because they got the pressure to go to Congress and get them to pass something of I get Mickey Mouse. So I'm going. All right, go ahead. Go, Alan. Give your thing.
Ernie, let me address this. Your distaste for government and rules is famous, and I understand that. So let me address this. I might be a little sarcastic, but you know me. Let me address this in terms you can understand, and maybe Stephan can help us clear it all up. You're concerned about who invented it first and that the words are always there. And I used 2 examples before. I'll use them again. Johnny Be Good, right? By Chuck Berry. He invented it first. Nobody invented it before him, and nobody's going to invent it after him. It's unique. And Michelle by the Beatles. They invented it. Nobody before them, nobody after them. It's unique. It's theirs. We all love it. Enjoy it.
I thought it was Michael Jackson's now, but anyway.
Okay. Because it can be sold. It is a piece of property. Do we agree that those two songs are pieces of property and
No.
they have that?
No.
Let me
No.
finish. Let me
No.
finish. Do we agree that they're pieces of property and that you can own them, sell them? People are willing to spend money to get them, and they have to spend the money somewhere to buy them?
If they're
Do
in
we
an
agree
album,
they're
if you're talking
property?
about the actual book itself, if you're talking about the CD, if you're talking about the means of transfer of I got my goodies and I hold it, yes.
Let me
but the
clarify
actual,
that.
yeah, see, you got to clarify.
Let me clarify it. When now I played a song, but we'll use Chuck Berry. When he invented out of thin air something that didn't exist, not atoms in the universe, but a piece of mentality, a song, he created it. It would be fraud to say, how can I put this so you'll get it?
That somebody else
To
made
say,
it.
Johnny,
It's actually-
Be Good,
yeah.
Johnny Be Good by Ernie Hancock. That would be fraud. Do we
No,
agree?
it wouldn't. No, I disagree with that actually.
It'd be fraud. It wouldn't be fraud.
All right,
to say
Steve. Well, let
Johnny Be
Stephan
Good
go
by
ahead
Ernie
and you respond. Go
Okay,
ahead.
Yeah, let me just have a couple of things where I would clarify. First of all, Johnny Be Good was invented by Marty McFly. If you remember Back to the Future, there was a time loop. So
You're being silly. Let's be serious.
just joking. Just joking.
Try to be serious. See,
No,
you
no,
guys
let him
do this all the
respond.
time.
Alan, let Stephan respond. Go ahead,
It's
Stephan.
just a joke. It's just a joke. Look, Ernie and I think Ernie and I are not against rules or law. We're just against the state. Whether we're against government or not depends upon how you define government. If you mean that the governing institutions of law and order, I'm not against that. I'm just an anarchist, so I'm against the state. So if you're precise with your terms, but we're not against law.
I
We're
addressed
against-
that to Ernie, not you, Stephan.
Well, I think we feel.
Yeah, no,
similarly
Stephan
on
and I are. When he says something that I don't agree with, I'll say. Go ahead, Stephan.
Try and address what I said, and we'll get somewhere.
He's going. If you
I
let him, he'll do it. Stephan, go.
What I'm saying is we disagree with particular rules, okay, particular laws that are unjust. It is true you can sell a copyright, and some people want to buy it given that they exist. But it's also true that in the days of slavery, human beings were chattel property and they could be sold. And so just because the legal system pushed on us by the state can have rules that allow things to be treated like property doesn't mean that that's just. So the question is justice, okay? Now, you also said earlier that it's the Constitution and our law recognizes copyright as property. I actually don't think that's correct. I think that copyright and patent were recognized as monopoly grants, privileges granted by the state, and they were called property as a sort of a propaganda term to defend against criticisms by free market economists in the 1800s. Okay, a property right doesn't expire after an arbitrary period of years, Alan. You know, if you own your grandfather's watch or his car or you own a home, you can own it potentially forever, pass it on to your children. Patents expire in 17 or so years. Copyrights expire after 100 or so years. How can that be a property right if it just expires? So it's
Okay,
obviously
but-
just a social.
No, I'm not going to participate in this. This is what libertarians do that make them ineffective in politics. I asked you a specific question about one thing, and like libertarians I deal with, you're now talking about patents, watches, law, the
All right.
Constitution.
I guarantee
Is Johnny
Stephan will
B. Good
answer your
a piece
question.
of property?
Ask the question, Alan.
I'm happy to answer any particular question.
Yeah, ask the particular. Don't make a speech. Make a particular question so he can answer it. Go.
Is Johnny B. Good a piece of property?
I would say under today's legal system, it is classified as property. Yes, it is, but that doesn't mean it's just.
Fair enough. Who owns that original piece of property when it was created?
Well, it depends upon whether it was a work for hire, but so some a corporation or human being owns it. Either the author, or if it's a work for hire, it would be the employer, which usually is a corporation, or it could be someone that he contractually assigned the right to later, which would probably be a corporation yet again. So I don't know. According to I don't know who owns it, but someone owns
We
it.
know the conditions of its creation.
I don't.
I do. He wrote it in the privacy of a room. It was not a work for hire. He was not under contract. I know what work for hire is.
For
It's
hire
a
doesn't mean
change of
contract.
subject.
It means you have to be I'm not changing the subject. You asked me a question.
Who owned when Chuck Berry wrote Johnny Be Good in the privacy of a room as a song, who owned it?
If he was employed by a company to write songs, then the employer would own it. In
See,
fact, they would
But
be.
he was not.
All right, I'm pushing the button so I can have a statement here. When you say who owns it, based on what? The current law. Well, who owns this slave? Well, the man says you do. Just because you have this ownership and I got a paper from the crown and I got guns that's going to enforce this contract or this seal of bill of sale if I got this slave, that doesn't mean squat to a libertarian. You are correct, Alan. Not a damn thing. It is a moral thing. Can I have an idea and express it without looking for who had the idea? I don't care. Now, is there a legal framework? Does it go back to the Bible? Yep, I can show you. And Stephan Kinsella is the freaking expert on this. He can show you nit and tittle of every little thing that done. And it keeps changing. My property right in stuff doesn't change. Either it's mine or it's not. Intellectual property is built on. No, I don't recognize your law, Alan. I don't. It doesn't mean anything to me. You got to come up with a better idea. For you to say, well, who owns it? Well, Stephan's going, well, I guess under that current system, the king says, which don't mean crap to me.
I'm not referring to law. I'm referring in principle.
So okay.
Then that's a whole other thing.
I was confused. If you're asking under a libertarian in a private law society in a libertarian legal order, are you asking me who would own the song?
I'm trying to get down to root principles of nature. That if I create something in the privacy of my mind, like a song, and I'm using Chuck Berry, who's a simple guy, writing a simple song we all know, he creates
I know. Yeah, I got
in
it.
his mind. And then I want to get to the next issue, which is it a bundle of rights? So there are many things in a right to copy.
Okay, let him answer.
I got it. Yeah. So so when you asked me earlier whether it's a piece of property, I thought you were asking a positive law question about how it's treated under today's legal system.
I already said I'm not looking at the statutes and the laws because they're messed up.
I understand. But when you asked that question, I thought you were changing. So I misunderstood you. If you're asking me as a libertarian under natural law, natural property rights systems, no, the answer is clearly no. A song is not a piece of property because it's not a scarce resource. It's a pattern of information. A song cannot be owned by anyone. It doesn't have an owner. It's not property. Okay. So that would be my answer to that.
Now, you brought up scarcity. So let me address scarcity.
Bring it on. We got Alan Korwin, at gunlaws.com, and we have Stephan Kinsella, Stephan Kinsella, KINSELLA.com. And this is what we're talking about. We're trying to focus it on copyright. Is it protected property? Well, I did a show on, when was this? It was November. It was October 20th, so just a couple weeks ago. We had Matt Smith on. Now, we know Matt Smith. He Porter Stansberry. He's an entrepreneur, gazillionaire, does great and wonderful and everything. And what did he do? He created a thing. It's called royalty exchange. Now, these are songs that have a revenue stream. A lot of these, like they got Eminem and all his stuff out there and so on, and they're trading the revenue that's created from these songs, and they go, you know what? These have value, and they put up and they're offered as pieces of this, a royalty exchange, and that I want to buy and sell and this and kind of, and it makes me money. Well, you can sell it for future revenue that's going to happen. But it's all based in, he's a hardcore anarchist libertarian type, but he knows where to make him some money. Now, he's not necessarily supportive of the concept, but that won't stop him from making money on it. And I'm going, yeah, okay, well, a good libertarian can make money off of copyright, peace out. And you go listen to that show, and we had a really good conversation. But, is it real property? Well, just like, Stephan and Alan will agree that, there's the crown out there going, yeah, I say it is. All right? So, my whole thing, I don't feel that any intellectual property, and certainly copyright, is a permission slip in my brain that I need to go and get sanction from the government on something that it's an idea. you don't want me to have this idea and you don't want me to propagate it, don't tell me. I got a perfect example. My son's in-laws, they have this great salsa recipe. I mean, I'm like, oh, hell no, I need to have this. And they go, well, I guess it's a family secret, but I guess we can give it. I go, no, don't tell me, because as soon as you tell me, it goes in a cookbook of everybody, and then it's mine. You don't want me to know, don't tell me. So they didn't, but they gave me a bunch of salsa. Well, that's your protection right there. Don't tell me, keep it secret. But if you think you're going to publish it and somebody else isn't going to do it, that's just dumb. I mean, it's gonna happen anyway. So now we're into the real conversation. What I think it's very interesting is, do you have a property right in an idea? Well, I don't think so, but that's what we're discussing. Okay, I'll let you go, Alan, first, because I know you're on the edge of your seat, man. Go.
Ernie, once again, I'm not going to talk to you about recipes or change the subject. If we're going to get anywhere, we've got to focus, and we're going to stay with songs because they're discreet and they're easy. It's dead center on copyright, and I'm going to go back to where we were.
Okay, I want to tell the story of Alan. This is what Alan did. At this meeting, he sang a song. He sang a song, I'm Just a Cat. And it was an awesome song, and I can see that's catchy, man. That's going to hit the internet and going, you shouldn't have sang it, man. If I had a recording, I would have posted it up on YouTube right away. If I'd known you do that again, boom, I'm putting it up, and it's gone. Now what?
Okay, thank you, Ernie. I appreciate that. That gets back to theft, but that's another subject. So we'll try and stay focused and get somewhere. But I'm going to put this out there. One of the reasons libertarians I sometimes call losertarians, and they don't get anywhere politically, which I'd like to see. Let me speak. Look, I think libertarians hold a key to the safety of this nation, which I would like to see happen, because the nation is going down the tubes, and the principles that libertarians hold could save America and freedom, which I hold very dear. But if they keep changing the subject, can't stay focused, have principles which lead to absurd conclusions, they have to refocus and get their brains screwed on. So you talk about salsa, I'm going to stay with copyright and a song. I used Chuck Berry as an example because we all know it. So Stephan brought up scarcity. I want to address scarcity because all the literature I read, you don't understand scarcity, at least you, Ernie. I won't address Stephan, let him answer. When a hit song comes out, it is the most scarce thing on the face of the planet. I was at Arista Records when they found out that Eric Carmen's song, All By Myself, was going to #1. The entire building was ecstatic. There is nothing more scarce than a hit song or a New York Times best-selling book. Gold and silver and diamonds come out of the earth constantly, but a hit song, copyright, a hit book is scarce beyond anything, immeasurable, and of value beyond calculation. That is scarcity of the third type of property. Now, we haven't completely agreed that all three types of property exist, at least Stephan and I. I believe there's three types. Copyright is the third, and it is actually the biggest, most important super type of property with all sorts of almost magical properties to it, and it is scarce beyond gold and diamonds. Stephan, tell me why copyrights aren't scarce. Chuck Berry's song, immeasurably valuable, generated millions of dollars.
Well, so you see how you're conflating valuable with scarcity, and you're not defining
just scarcity. Just scarcity. There's nothing else like it before or since. It is unique.
Well, uniqueness is not what scarcity is about, and I think that in political, we're having some kind of weird audio feedback.
It'll clear up. Go ahead.
Okay, so in political legal terms, scarcity refers to something that in economics is called rivalrousness. Maybe we should use that word instead because it keeps leading to confusion and to people talking past each other. We don't mean something that's unique or even lack of abundance. Scarcity is, or rivalrousness is, a particular quality of a resource on the earth where two or more people can have a conflict over the use of that thing. Okay, so this gets back to Austrian economics and the way we classify human action.
Can you define rivalrousness? I don't have a definition.
Rivalry means it's the quality of a good okay, which means that one person's use excludes anyone else's use of it. So it's something where there could be conflict over it. So, for example, if you and I wanted to use a kitchen or a pot to make a meal.
No. Use Johnny Be Good. Don't go to a physical good.
No, let him express himself, Alan.
I'm trying to.
Pots. Stay with a song.
Well, what I'm going to explain is that the song is information, okay? And so information is one aspect of human action. Material, scarce goods, or rivalrous resources, means of action, are another part of human action. We need to employ these things to act, to get things done, but we need information to guide our choices and our decisions. The information is not scarce. It's not a rivalrous thing. But the reason I say it's not rivalrous is because you and I could both sing the song Johnny Be Good at the same time in our own houses without conflict with each other, but we can't use the same guitar. Do you understand that distinction?
I certainly do, but two companies can't get the same song at the same time.
Sure they could.
From Chuck Berry.
Sure they could. Why couldn't they?
If he chose to walk, well, because there are rights to the property.
Well, that's circular then. You're making a circular argument then.
I don't believe I am.
Well, you're trying to argue the way it should be, right? Not what the rights. I mean, so you can't say the rights. That's a positive law thing. So if we're going to talk about what the rights should be, we need to distinguish between what the way the law is and the way the law should be.
Okay, we're going to go straight into the break with this. We're going to go straight into the break. Go to the. This is the one thing I'm so looking forward to, decentralized internet, that I can do whatever the heck I want and have in the video, and it goes up and everybody can suck it, because that is what's going to happen. And all of these, and you're seeing it happen now, for whatever reason or excuse, here comes the man, and we shut you down, and you're not allowed. And you got to go, you know what? It's going to get to the point very soon, and it's not going to matter. It's moot. You can sit there and whine and complain and bitch all you want. It's called Napster. I mean, this is what has got Alan worked up, man. He's like, damn. I mean, it's just everybody can steal everything from you and steal. Where we're going, steal. It's not steal. You get to have it. You get to use it. So I'm just, that's what the discussion is. And we're getting down to the history of where copyright comes from. And it's always from the collective of they, and those that, the crown grants and you're allowed and you're not, and kind of that's bad to begin with, from my opinion. So, all right, I'll let you go first, Stephan. Go and respond.
Well, by the way, Alan, if copyright was enforced strictly enough, we wouldn't be able to play that song just now.
I know. That's why I play it. Hellfire Missile's on its way.
That's not true.
Why not?
Well, copyright is actually enforced privately. When you go into a club and they're playing music, ASCAP and BMI monitor that, collect royalties from the club so they can play music. It's done in a statistical way, and I get a check every time they play one of my songs. I get a small check. The Beatles and Chuck Berry get a big check because their music is played more and more places, and it's a private company. When mechanicals are made, physical copies, the Harry Fox Agency, a private company, monitors that, collects royalties, and distributes them statistically.
Sounds like a lot of paperwork.
But you missed my point.
Well, it is. There's a lot of money. There's a lot of places that collect a lot of it, and they distribute it. It's paperwork, Ernie, but if it's your music, you want to get paid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but you think Ernie should actually be penalized right now for what he just did?
Hell yeah.
He wasn't penalized. He pays for use of property.
Oh, so when I get a tax bill, it's not a penalty. It's just what you have to pay for.
You're changing the subject again to taxes. I'm talking about pay for use of a person's property. It's like rent. I own it. You use it. I charge you through my agent, and I get paid. It's fair. It's libertarian. Look, I only have a few minutes left, so let me bring up a couple of points.
Wait, I thought it was my turn.
Discuss them when I'm not here. Is that okay? I think we agreed. I think we agreed that if I write a song and you say you wrote it, that's fraud. So
no, actually, I disagreed with that.
Okay, well, I'll make my position, and I won't be here in a couple of minutes because I have a meeting downtown. I believe if I write a song and you say you wrote it, you're cheating. It's fraud. It's a form of theft.
It's dishonesty. It's not fraud.
Well, okay, it's
All right,
dishonest.
well, let him define that real quick so you can continue the conversation. Stephan, it's not fraud if I take one of his books, publish it, and put my name on it and say I did it. Okay, why is that not fraud?
It could be fraud. It's not necessarily fraud, but it's rarely fraud. Go ahead. I don't interrupt Alan's scarce time that he has left.
Go.
Okay, so like Ernie said, I wrote a book. Ernie copies it, puts it out on the market, and says, by Ernie Hancock, it's a lie, it's fraud, and it's theft, in my opinion. If he makes money on it, let's say there's $1 million market for this book, and he makes $500,000. I've been harmed $500,000 worth, and I can only make $500,000 because he has sucked that money out of the market. I've been harmed. That's bad. And these rights...
It's not bad. I disagree. It's not bad.
I understand you don't agree, and you'll be able to respond without me here to defend myself, and you and I will talk online or offline afterwards. Where are you based?
Well, first of all, I'm in Houston, but I'm happy to have you stay on longer if you want. You can stay on the whole time I'm on. So it's not.
I'm the chairman of a meeting. I've got a lot of people coming. I've got to be there. I'm sorry.
I'm not shutting the microphone off. You're welcome to stay as long as you want, as far as I'm concerned.
Thank you, but you understand I have other obligations, and I'm not that libertarian.
Go ahead and finish.
So that's fraud, and I've covered theft. If the market has a certain size, you suck money out because people want to hear my song, and they hear you play it. You're entitled to the performance royalty. If Glenn Campbell plays my song, he should get the performance royalty, and I should get the royalty as the creator of the song that everybody wants to come and hear.
That's the current legal system, Alan. I thought you said you were talking about principles. Now you're going back to the current legal system.
I don't believe I am. There's natural rights. So copyright is a bundle of rights, and they're natural and inherent in the creation, in the mentality that I invented this song like Chuck Berry invented his, I invented mine. It's more real property than dirt or physical goods. Those require atoms that already exist. The Chuck Berry song involves something that never existed before or after. It's only because Chuck Berry lived that this effloresced. It's a creation. It's almost supernatural.
I totally agree with you on that, by the way. I totally agree.
Good. So
but creation is not a source of ownership. Creation is a source of wealth, not of ownership. That's the distinction that you don't understand.
Fair enough. Like Bitcoin. Bitcoin isn't actually real. It's a concept that we accept and agree to, and it's digits on a wire, and it has value. So songs have enormous value. The music industry is worth billions. It's based on songs, and the laws that govern it need some improvement. I have no problem with law as a principle, and that goes on. Let me touch on monopoly briefly. I have only a few minutes left. I own my house in a monopoly sort of way. It's mine. You can't just walk in. I can actually defend it with lethal force. And I own my songs and my books in a monopoly sort of way. They are mine. They are not yours. Law recognizes that. And those can be defended with the government as an intermediary. Police can come and help me defend my house.
What about your kids and your wife? Do you own them?
No, of course not. Not that way.
But you can't just use a preposition like it's my song, therefore I own it.
Yeah, see, this is one thing you complain that Stephan is off the beaten path. I don't want to talk about that, but you keep doing the same thing, Alan. You keep trying to equate copyright with some kind of physical property thing.
Well, plus he used the word invent. You said you invent a song. Invention is a patent law concept. So now you see why I brought patent law in, because these things are related.
I used the word imprecisely out of speed and the short time we have. I created the song. It's an invention of my mind. It's a creation of my mind. I'll be more precise with language, and as a writer of legal texts, I usually am very precise, but because of time, it's a creation of my mind. And as such, it has certain unique properties. And as Ernie has pointed out, and libertarians have pointed out to me, if somebody takes it, I still have it. That's an almost magical property of this kind of property. There's the music. We're out of time. Stephan, I wish we had more time to go through this. It's fascinating. You're right on some parts. Libertarians like Ernie and perhaps yourself miss the boat on some issues. Copyright is real. It's property. It's a bundle of rights.
Your family
invincible. It's worth a fortune. It's the most scarce property. Libertarians like to steal it, apparently, because it's easy to do. It's hard to be caught. They want it. They don't want to pay for it. They feel once they hear it, now it's theirs. That is completely false. It's dishonorable. The Torah says a person who does that is a sordid person. Now, that's just one philosophical perspective, but you could go perform it, say, this is my song. I can't even know you're doing it, but it's a sordid thing to do, and that's the nature of the game. So there, I wish I had more time and we could go.
Yeah, we do too. I'm glad that we got to do this, Alan. You got to express yourself. I think you did as good a job as you could when you did your presentation and now, but I'm just, I knew this would be interesting because it gets down to the basics of what I think is, should the government be able to tell me what I can and can't do with what's in my brain? And that's a bad slope to go sliding down. So
Bernie, you can do what you want when it's in your brain. When you take it out of your brain and give it to other people for large amounts of money, some of that money is mine, and you could do it with my permission.
See, that's another thing. When you go like this, you say,
money.
yeah, you see, you're going like, you're making all this money and it should be mine. Hell, then you go make it. I mean, what made me different?
No. We split the money.
No, I go and perform something or reconstitute the idea or do or change it, not change it, sing it better. I can put up here Johnny Be Good by, freaking McFly. And I'm just going, I understand your point, and we'll go ahead and you're right, and we're going to, try not to beat you up too much when you're not here. But,
Ernie, go ahead and perform it. I want you to perform it. We'll go 50-50, maybe 60-40. Have a great time.
All right. Thanks,
Nice
Alan.
meeting you.
I love you.
Bye.
You be good. Save the world. I think libertarians can save the world, but you got to do it right.
No, of course. There's a central plan for freedom, according to Alan.
Take care,
All
my
right.
friend.
All right. Bye, Alan.